Okay. Good morning, Sunnyvale. I'm Sunnyvale Mayor Larry Klein. Thanks for joining again this week at our early start time. Um, Welcome. I hope everyone's had a good Labor Day weekend and Labor Day week for those of you that are taking some time off. We got some surprising lightning and thunder and a little bit of drizzle early this morning. And actually, I had a little few drops on my morning run, but really it's needed rain, and I wish it was a little bit more rain, but I'll be happy with whatever we can get at this point. This is the 78th installment of my weekly virtual office hour address. We've now reached 543 days since the March 16th, 2020 county health order started the shelter in place in an attempt to slow the pandemic. 18 months ago, I converted my weekly coffee shop hours into a weekly live stream address and haven't missed a week. People still say they enjoy hearing from their mayor every week, and I, enjoy these sessions because they're really good for me because I can, reach out to a lot of people. They allow me to, reflect on what's happened over the last few weeks, but they give me a chance to give you some updates, some news, pass on some general words of encouragement, and answer some of your questions that I get a lot of the same questions from multiple people. So it actually works out well from that standpoint. I am following up these televised office hours with in-person office hours at Being Seen on Murphy Avenue from about 9:15 to about 11:30 every week. So you can join me there. But I just want to thank you for allowing me to continue to represent you and work for Sunnyvale as best I can. I hope everyone's staying well, and being healthy. Of course, wearing your mask as required, and getting your vaccine if you haven't gotten it already. A few months ago, I started changing my background art every week with art provided by Sunnyvale artists. So this week's piece is called Aravata, the Elephant of the Heavens, and it's by Jashishi. No, sorry, Jayashri Sadavisan. And if you want to purchase that piece of art, please reach out to me, and I'll put you in contact with that artist. Let's go ahead and get started and talk about what's happened at the federal, state, and county, and of course the city level over the last 2 weeks. Last a week ago, or last Sunday, Monday, Caltrain restart or light rail VTA light rail started its service about 2 weeks ago, and they continue to expand their service over the month. Last Monday, Caltrain rolled out its new service schedule, and we got baby bullets now. None for Sunnyvale, although I continue advocating for it. We got better transfers to BART. There's more evening and midday service, plus a Gilroy train. But the most important thing, at least in the short term, is fares have been reduced to 50% off for the month of September. So definitely, if you haven't ridden Caltrain for a while, now's the time to try. Last Tuesday, the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors passed a no confidence resolution against Sheriff Lori Smith. And so that was unanimous. And 2 weeks before that, of course, there were, the request from the supervisors to have the state and federal officials actually do an investigation in the operations of the South Bay jails and a certain amount of corruption scandals that have affected her office. And the vote was basically symbolic to some degree in that Sheriff Smith is an elected official. So, but ultimately that action, and it was brought forth by Supervisor Simidian and Supervisor Ellenberg, but it kind of paves the way for a transition, and it kind of helps speed up conceivably some of the reforms that kind of fueled that probe. So it's just a resolution. And it's also kind of tied to the $1 million settlements because of what's been happening at the jail. And Sheriff Smith was kind of on the offensive, pushing back, saying that that was being railroaded, and that the supervisors are scapegoating her. But it isn't just mental, it's just not the mental health and substance abuse issues that are a county issue, and the county's working on, which the jails, I think a third of the inmates in the jails are related to mental health and substance abuse. But there's the other portion also, that from an operational standpoint and a scandal standpoint, that the supervisors are looking to correct. Last Tuesday evening, council met, and we started off with a resolution for the people in Afghanistan. And I'd heard from numerous community members and council members that they would like council to bring forward a resolution in support of the Afghan people. And I think, everyone's been concerned about what they've seen in Afghanistan over the last few weeks. And as these events unfolded, it's like having a terrorist attack, watching the devastation and the loss of so many lives, including, 13 U.S. servicemen, but also, dozens and conceivably hundreds of others that have lost their lives in the last month or so. So, and I think, it was mainly ceremonial, but that to me, it was important because, Sunnyvale really values the diversity, and we welcome refugees from around the world. And from that standpoint, it was kind of underlying our community values. We value the diversity of our city, people from all nations, all races, whatever their beliefs, whatever their abilities, whoever they love, are welcome in our city. And I think that was an important thing to put forth. So I was happy that was unanimously approved by our council members. We also reviewed the data that had been collected for the temporary closure of eastbound Tasman Drive. So we closed one lane about a year ago, and that was done during the pandemic. I brought that forth to city staff when I had been delivering mass in North Sunnyvale and had seen people walking in the street because there aren't sidewalks between Lawrence Expressway and Tasman. And a lot of that, has to do with when the light rail went in the 90s. There was a certain amount of pushback that people didn't want trees taken down. They wanted to keep that along that corridor. That being said, the safety of people, trying to get to a grocery store is really important, and so I think that was an important thing that we did a year ago. Over the last year, we basically directed staff to come back, and this was kind of, they brought back that data. They were suggesting to go ahead and open it up. That being said, I do think that, and one of the things that council did do earlier this year was kick off a study issue to evaluate, long-term changes to that corridor, to add sidewalks, to make it a little bit safer. But ultimately, council decided to maintain that closure of the eastbound Tasman lane, at least for another 12 months. And it gives staff and the city manager some flexibility that if traffic levels rise too much, if there's starting to be queuing and backup in that area, then city staff can reopen it to making sure that it's safe for people going through there. But since so many companies have actually delayed bringing employees back into Moffett Park, that seems like a feasible thing to do in the short term, and conceivably in the long term, depending upon what that study issue that we kicked off actually says. So ultimately, that will continue. The city manager still has some ability that if there are issues, if queuing or traffic gets above certain levels, then conceivably that can be closed down again. But I've heard from multiple residents that that's actually been a good thing for the community, and I've been happy to see, when I've been out there biking, I've been seeing people biking and walking along that corridor. So I think it's been positive from that standpoint. Council also decided to remove the on-street parking for the northbound direction on Willow Avenue. And this is the road that kind of goes underneath Lawrence Expressway right near Lawrence Expressway in Reed or Old San Francisco, so right in that area. And it was basically to create a safer corridor, both away from kind of Lawrence Expressway, so you don't have to actually interface with that, but also ultimately get residents to that Lawrence Caltrain station as easy as possible. And then last Wednesday, Governor Newsom was in Oakland to highlight the 80% of eligible Californians have now received at least one dose of the vaccine. He's also, received a lot of positive poll information that the recall will most likely fail. There were polling that came out this morning that ultimately said, I think it's about 60% that are voting no on the recall now. So it's actually shifted from being only a few percentage points to about 20 percentage point increase, or no versus yes on the recall. So don't forget that your last day to get your ballot in, or at least postmarked if you're going to be mailing it, is next Tuesday, September 14th. So, and let's see what else. And of course, as far as this week is concerned, Monday was a Labor Day, so city offices and the library were closed. Hope everybody had a relaxing weekend. Monday was also the beginning of Rosh Hashanah, so thanks. And so I hope for those that are celebrating it, I hope they enjoyed the day, and it's actually several days of Rosh Hashanah. Thanks to the local family that helped me explore some of my Jewish background, and by sharing some of their traditions and welcome me in to their celebration. So thank you very much. On Wednesday of this week, council had a special meeting, and that was and normally we have meetings on Tuesdays. We postponed it to Wednesday, partly because of Rosh Hashanah, but we wanted to make sure that we actually had to have a special meeting to make sure that this project was reviewed in a timely fashion. But it was a review of a planning commission decision from July on the redevelopment of the eastern portion. So it's the eastern portion of Fremont Corners into a mixed-use development with about 8,000 square feet of commercial space and 50 four-story townhome condos. And so what this was, what we did was call up, and from a project standpoint, this was our first SB 330 project. And so this is one of these state laws that was approved and signed into law about 2 years ago, but what came into action in 2020. So that came into effect in 2020. But this allows developers that are providing any affordable housing to basically streamline that process and take a lot of basically waivers on what would be considered standard design guidelines from a city standpoint. And it was good to actually have some discussions about that. We brought it up and we added some conditions of approval that the developer agreed with, to add additional parking lot shading to decrease the heat island effect of that. I wasn't completely happy with the design, and definitely there were a lot of residents that didn't really like some of the design. But it's important that we add housing, and that was one of the areas. Fremont Corners is one of our village centers. So what we decided a few years ago was trying to create areas of mixed use where we'd be adding housing above or next to the commercial. So basically adding more dense housing at Fremont Corners, at the corner of Fremont and Mary is kind of another example. So looking at areas within the city where we already have commercial, but adding commercial, adding podium parking, kind of introducing that into a mixed use opportunity is much better for the city, because you end up creating these walkable communities. You maintain that commercial component, and that's one of the biggest issues that we see with some of the state bills, that if we require a commercial component, the state bills basically allow developers to some degree, exempt that. So I was hoping for a little bit more commercial. That being said, I was happy that they're looking at maintaining both the Jake's and the Longhorn restaurant in a new building it would be along Fremont Avenue. So ultimately, they're trying to maintain some of those commercial attractions, but also add housing adjacent to that. So ultimately, council approved that project with some additional conditions that I think made the project a little bit better, but ultimately, to some degree, our hands are tied by what's been happening at the state level. And it's really bad for a city that is pro housing and works with developers to create better projects, that these developments are seen as positive, and some of the negotiations create a much more positive effect in the community, a much better design. One of the things that this project ended up deciding that they didn't want to do is undergrounding their utilities. And usually when we're building, especially large projects, we require them to underground the utilities because it's just safer overall for the community. It looks better, and that was one of the exemptions that they requested and were granted from a project standpoint. And then yesterday, President Biden had a big announcement on rationing up vaccination requirements around the United States. So he will now require executive branch employees and federal contractors to get vaccinated with no option to test for COVID-19 as an alternative. So this is basically going one step beyond with what was required about a month and a half ago. And then so he laid out kind of 6 different steps. That was one of them. Another was requesting that the Department of Labor look at drafting a requirement that all employers around the U.S. over 100 employees have their employees vaccinated or show negative test results at least once a week. So that was something that he's doing through the Department of Labor. He's also increasing federal testing and masking availability, so basically making it both affordable and convenient for people that want to get tested, or make masks a lot more available. And then I think another thing will be the TSA will actually be doubling the fines for people who don't want to wear masks on planes. And so ultimately, we've seen a lot of videos in the last few months, especially the last few weeks, about people that don't want to wear masks while on planes, and then what they deal, and then having to deal with what the flight attendants have had to deal with. And it has been, let's say, a little raucous at times in our air. Let's go ahead and get to our weekly COVID numbers. So the COVID cases are stabilizing a little. From a national standpoint, we're now at 40.5 million cases. That's increased about a million in the last week. That's down from 1.5 million of the week before. So it is, it's trending a little bit down. As we're still seeing a lot of numbers of mainly COVID, and now we're starting to see some new variants. But ultimately, things have stabilized a little bit. Nationally, we have about 208 million people vaccinated with at least one dose. That's 75% of adults, and almost 64% of adults are fully vaccinated. So, and then as far as deaths, the U.S. still has quite a few deaths on a weekly basis. We had 11,000 in the last week, up 10,000 from the week before, so we've now reached 652,000 deaths. And then as far as California, we've had 4.3 million positive cases. That's down to about 7,500 cases a day in the last week. That's about the same as we had a week ago. And then California has had 66,000 fatalities. That's an increase of 600 in the last week from 700 the week before. But from California has been good. We're from vaccines, so we've had 47.6 million vaccine administered, about 600,000 in the last week, and we're still at number 9 with adults. About 83% of adults with at least one dose, and we're number 16 in states with residents that are fully vaccinated with 67.9%. So from a state standpoint, things are looking fairly good. From a county, things are even looking a lot better. We've had a cumulative test case of over 137,000, about 2,000 in the last week, but that's down from 3,000, 3,000 from the week previous. But we've had 1,744 deaths, 13 additional in the past week, and but our vaccination numbers continue to look good. Far better than the state. 87.6% of the county age 12 and older have at least one dose, and 82% of those 12 and older are fully vaccinated. So those numbers are fantastic. Thanks to everyone who's received the vaccine so far. And I hear people are still out there getting their vaccines. I continue to do a lot of advocating on our city's behalf, trying to get more testing and mainly vaccinations locally. At the county level, I talk to our county health and county supervisors on what we can do to make it easier. For testing, of course, the easiest thing to do is go to sccfreetest.org, and you can find all the locations that will be doing testing. There's supposed to be a national rollout of easier to find testing, and that's one of the things that Biden was referring to. And as far as getting vaccinated, the county has lots of drop-in vaccination clinics, no appointment required, and you can always go to register for the vaccine and make an appointment. You can go to sccfreevax.org. But as far as walk-up locations, there are multiple ones on a daily basis around the county, and county health is going to be at Our Daily Bread. So if you know about Our Daily Bread, they've been serving our city for more than 35 years, providing free lunch to anyone who wants it, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's on Sunset Avenue, right next to Washington Park. But the county health van will be there from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. today. So that's today. And then as far as tomorrow, they will be at the Sunnyvale shelter on Hamlin from noon until 1. So, there's 2 opportunities for anybody who wants to get vaccinated. That's today and tomorrow. So today at Our Daily Bread, and tomorrow at the Hamlin shelter. And then as far as next month, they will actually be at the El Dorado Mobile Home Community, and I'll give those dates in October next month. Next, I wanted to give you some updates on some upcoming events. So tomorrow, Saturday, September 11th, around 8:30 a.m., there will be a small 20-year commemoration for 9/11 at Fire Station 2. So it's mainly a private event. It's more mainly ceremonial. But it's a day of remembrance. Where we get a chance to honor those who lost their lives on that day, 20 years ago, and thank them for their sacrifice. It was definitely the world changed when those towers fell, and I think definitely changed the way our nation operates. And so it'll be good to see a few people in person, but ultimately this is an outside event. We're trying to keep the numbers relatively small, but you will be able to watch kind of from the sidelines if you want. And tomorrow, midday, our county supervisor, Joe Simidian, has restarted his farmers market office hours. So he will be at the Sunnyvale Farmers Market from noon until 1 p.m. tomorrow. And I'll drop by for a little while. So if you have a question for me, of course you can, always come to my in-person office hours. You can email me to reserve, a 15-minute or a 30-minute slot, Friday mornings, or you can just drop in if you have a quick, 2 to 5 minute question. But I'll also be there at the farmers market with Supervisor Simidian, answering any questions you may have of the city. So that's a great chance for you to see him and his staff in person, or see me in person. I've been planning to do that for a while now. Definitely before the pandemic, I was meeting in person at the farmers market, once or twice a month. Haven't returned to that. Just trying to be on the safe standpoint, but it is outdoors. Will be masked, so it is positive from that standpoint. So definitely come out tomorrow if you want to get a chance to, if you have a question or just want to say hi. And then on Sunday morning, that's September 12th, at 10 a.m., there will be an Evelyn Trail bike infrastructure ride. And so definitely, the concept of an Evelyn Trail has been, talked about for many years. I proposed it more than 10 years ago. It got finally, it was going to be a study issue about 4 years ago. And ultimately it got merged into our active transportation plan, which got approved last year. Ultimately, it's now been funded with the state's current budget, and thank you to Senator Becker for doing that, for making sure that was added. But ultimately, what this is doing is starting to create a trail experience between downtown Sunnyvale and downtown Mountain View. And so what we're doing on Sunday morning is meeting at the Stevens Creek Trail entrance on Evelyn, right there near 85, the 85 entrance. So we'll be meeting there at 10 a.m. on Sunday morning. We'll be talking a little bit about what the vision for an Evelyn Trail is looking like. And then there'll be council members from Mountain View. I'll be there, and lots of local bike enthusiasts from Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition, and others, Bike Sunnyvale. But ultimately, it's to ride that corridor from the Evelyn Trail entrance on Evelyn. So sorry, Stevens Creek Trail entrance on Evelyn, and then ultimately we will go to downtown Sunnyvale. So we'll go to there, stop there at the Caltrain station for a little bit, and then we'll ride back to downtown Mountain View and their Caltrain station. So you can enjoy that. It should probably be, my guess is it's a 4.5 mile ride approximately. It'll be about an hour, and then it ends up back at the Mountain View Caltrain station. So if you want to go to the Caltrain, or so the Mountain View Farmers Market at the Caltrain station, you can do that. So it's a positive. You can get out, get some exercise, and also enjoy the Mountain View Farmers Market on Sunday. Next Tuesday is September 14th, is the last day to turn in your recall ballots. So starting tomorrow, there are a lot of in-person options. You can always go to the county registrar office as you lead up to an election, but there are actually local locations to vote. You can vote to any location around the county, and multiple spaces open tomorrow. There are already ballot boxes that have been open, at the library, at the community center for a while now, but the voting centers in Sunnyvale will be open and around the county Saturday, Sunday, Monday from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on election day. And in Sunnyvale, that's Sunnyvale Middle School, it's Fair Oaks Park, and it's Columbia Middle School. So if you want, you can mail, and it has to be postmarked by September 14th. You can drop your ballot in the ballot boxes at the library or the community center, or you can vote in person, drop off in person at those locations or other locations around the county. So don't forget to turn in your recall ballot. And then on Tuesday evening next week, council will be meeting, and we'll have a study session to discuss first kind of writing memoranda. So from a council standpoint, basically putting forth position papers to other council members. So that'll be part of our study session, but we'll also be looking at discussing short-term rental ordinance enforcement and what the city can do to make our short-term rentals a little bit stronger. Everyone's heard about the shooting that happened at Airbnb last month, and so we're looking at things that we can do from a council standpoint to make from our city ordinance stronger and enforceable, and more enforceable, and more fines for those residents that aren't following our ordinances. And then we'll also be reviewing the Lawrence Station Plan Environmental Impact Report. So this is kind of the last stage of that Lawrence Station Plan. You know, we started out an update to the Lawrence Station Plan a while ago, and this environmental impact report increased the number of housing. You know, council gave direction as far as increasing the number of housing, and so that's been kind of underway for a while now. That we need to look at approving what the mitigations would be, what the actual impacts are that as far as that project is concerned. And then upcoming council meetings. Another meeting is going to be happening on September 28th. And so that will review the proposal to remove parking along Sunnyvale Avenue and install bike lanes from Maud to Hendy. So that's kind of a missing segment. As you know, Borregas has bike lanes, and Sunnyvale from Evelyn south to, you know, Sunnyvale Saratoga to Matilda, Sunnyvale Saratoga, that has bike lanes, and so it's looking at what we can do to add bike lanes along that segment. And then we'll also be reviewing a plan for 974 East Arquez. So it's a general plan amendment for Intuitive Surgical. So that is one of the things that Intuitive Surgical is actually one of our larger employers. Many people haven't heard about it, but it actually creates, you know, robotic surgical equipment here in Sunnyvale, and they're looking to expand kind of their headquarters as well as their manufacturing here in Sunnyvale. Let's go ahead and get to our weekly questions. If you have any questions, just add them to the chat now. Leslie asked, are there any plans to keep the downtown pedestrian only after the pandemic? We went downtown for dinner last night, and it was so pleasant to have the street blocked off. Yes, council directed that we will continue the closure until the end of the year, and we will re-examine it at that point. If you can always pass those positive messages to council and city manager by sending them email, council@sunnyvale.ca.gov, and the city manager at citymgr@sunnyvale.ca.gov. Definitely, we will be kicking off a study issue at our workshop next year on what we can do and what needs to be done to maintain that pedestrian atmosphere. You know, please keep telling your businesses that you would like the street being closed. You can always, talk to the Sunnyvale Downtown Association also. And so as we get closer to the end of the year, I think we'll be reevaluating whether or not to extend that temporary closure that we started during COVID. I think that's been one of the positive things to come out of COVID. Penny asked, there are many public places that water so much that water is running down the drain. Who can we talk to fix this if we see excessive watering? So definitely, that was one of the reasons why we declared, a drought emergency last month and requested everybody to reduce their water usage by 15%. Valley Water has wastewater, or basically water waster inspectors to respond to reports when water is being wasted and violating local water ordinances as far as usage. And so to report water waste, you can do several things. One of which is you can easily just call 408 630 2000. You can email waterwise@valleywater.org, and they've also created a Access Valley Water app. And if you go to the Valley Water app, you can select Conserve Water and Save with rebates. And if you search for water wasters, you can basically report people through the app. So several different ways that you can report, water being wasted within the city. Stephen asked, I have been waiting on Awani to make a right turn onto Matilda, and people have been honking at me to go, but there is a sign that says that it's no turn on red. What can be done? So yeah, when they redid the Matilda Monster, one of the things that they did was when they were looking at kind of the on-ramp onto 101 is, from a safety standpoint, stopping right turn on red from Awani going north onto Matilda. And they put up some signage. However, the signage is kind of around the corner and not really noticeable if you're waiting at the light. And so I've seen people, for one thing, turn right on red, and I've seen exactly what Stephen requested or commented on, is that I've seen people either go around people that are waiting for right on red or honk and do other things. And so, I talked to city staff. They have heard those complaints, and they're currently working to try to add additional signage that there is no right turn on red at that location. But, it is seen as important, and I totally understand, the frustration of people that, for one thing, used to have right turn on red and don't realize that it's no longer right turn on red, or being stopped behind people who now know there's right turn on red and want to follow what the appropriate traffic rules are. So hopefully we'll be adding that signage in the next week or so, and that will kind of clarify that problem. Kathleen asked, there was an outreach meeting earlier this month considering removing parking spaces along along Sunnyvale Avenue between Maud and Evelyn. What is happening with this decision? I've had multiple emails from residents. I've met with several residents about, that are for and against removing parking along that corridor. Staff is taking comments. There was an outreach meeting last month about, for people to give input from a process standpoint. Council's been getting lots of letters on both sides, but it comes in front of our Bicycle Pedestrian and Advocacy Commission this Thursday, September 16th, and that's around 7 p.m. and then, or 6:37 p.m. And then it comes to council, as I said previously, on September 28th. So, that's your chance to give feedback to council on that. And let's see, Debbie asked, when is the Washington Swim Center going to open? Currently, the date is for September 20th. That date has slipped a little bit, as county came in and asked for more things. The developer, the contractor, had to go through and rework some items. The swimming, it looks really good from the outside the gates and the fence right now. They've added a lot more. Some of the things that were missing as far from an ADA standpoint, but the pool is looking fantastic, and I just can't wait for it to open. But we're looking to be, close to about a week and a half from that finally being open. They've already got, the staff ready to be trained in operating at that pool. There are questions about, making sure that the water pH is correct and other things that had to be finalized before the pool could actually be used. But we're getting close, and I'll be happy to tell people when we're out there, and I'll be happy to be using it myself. Jenny asked, I missed the last redistricting commission meeting. When is the next one? So the next one is upcoming next month, but there was actually one that occurred last night, and it was to take public input and take public comment. Ultimately, we're getting closer to the date where we'll get the final Census 2020 data. So if you want to learn more about kind of the process, you can give feedback at sunnyvale.ca.gov/redistricting. But there's also other redistricting going on if you want to get involved. There's redistricting going on at the state level, and I gave testimony to the State Redistricting Commission about 2 weeks ago. There's also redistricting at a county level, looking at our supervisor districts, and we talked about that previously, about whether or not we wanted 1 or 2 supervisors representing Sunnyvale. And then from a county, there's also a Foothill De Anza redistricting meeting coming up, I think on the 22nd, but that will happen later this month, and that's looking at currently all the Foothill De Anza board members represent the entire district, and so what they're doing is looking at separating that area into multiple districts. So you can give feedback on that. So if you want to get involved on redistricting, there's lots of opportunity, and so that's a positive way that you can say what your community of interest is to those redistricting boards. Cynthia asked what's going on with Target. I've heard about ceiling tiles falling. When will they reopen? So ultimately, the ceiling tiles were only part of the issues. When they got in there with contractors, they saw some issues with the fireproofing of that building, and so ultimately they're taking down that tiles, redoing some of the fire work, basically the fire prevention work in Target. They did a press release that it wouldn't be reopening until next year. That being said, city staff is working with them. I've seen that they're already under operation to, they've got most of those tiles down and looking through the windows. Just went around by there this morning, and they're hard at work. City staff is hoping that they will be open by Thanksgiving, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed too. I miss having our Sunnyvale Target open, and I'm sure so many other people do also. Valerie asked, is there going to be a Sunnyvale Art and Wine Festival this year? So yeah, we're only about 3 weeks away. So the chamber will be putting on the Art and Wine Festival this year. It'll be a little bit smaller than it has been in the past, but it is October 2nd and October 3rd, the first weekend in October. And I met with the chamber CEO last week. Ultimately, there'll only be one big band each day as opposed to music, basically big bands throughout the day. And they'll still have, music, so they'll have a DJ playing and music, kind of non-live music throughout the day, but they'll at least have one big band both Saturday and Sunday. The art will be there, and they're working with a lot of local artists as well as bringing in artists from around California like they always do. And the food will mainly focus on the downtown restaurants. It'll be bringing people to enjoy downtown restaurants to a large degree. So it'll be a little bit smaller than it has been in the past, but happy that we will finally be able to have that kind of yearly event back. So happy to see that. Let's see other questions. Is the city doing, Josephine asks, is the city doing anything to resolve the rat problems? We've lived in Sunnyvale for 20 years, and this is the first time we've seen dead and alive rats in the neighborhood and our backyard. So I've lived here for, I moved here 30 years ago. We bought our home about 19 years ago, almost 20 years ago. And I've seen, living in an urban setting, I've seen rats for numerous years. I do think that this past year we've seen an increase, and part of it was kind of due to COVID, that rats couldn't get access to, I'll say, what was normal, kind of refuge from a lot of restaurants that were open. And so we have seen a little bit of that during shelter in place. I did talk to city staff, and they're looking, whether or not there are other measures that could be done. And there's also the county vector control as far as reporting, rat issues. So definitely it's part of living in an urban environment, but I totally agree that it has been somewhat of an increase, and I basically for years have been, let's say, in a battle with rats over our tomatoes in the summer. So that is an ongoing thing between the rats and the squirrels getting into our garden. Let's see. Any other questions? Does anyone know what's going on with the explosions we're hearing that are coming from Murphy Avenue area? Supposedly these, so I've talked to staff about this, supposedly these are fireworks that somebody's throwing into trash cans, and so that makes the booming even kind of noisier to some degree, or kind of change that echoing effect. But definitely it's trying to figure out what, who's doing it. If you witness anything, definitely report it to whoever, who report it to DPS if you actually witness anything, and report where it actually occurs. That's part of the issue, is you hear these loud noises, but it's then tracking down where it actually has occurred is sometimes a problem. Let's go ahead and go wrap up. Thanks for joining me again this week. I'm always proud of what Sunnyvale has done. For the last year and a half, our response to the pandemic has been really good. People pitching in to help their neighbors, to help those in need, sewing masks, and delivering food, delivering medicine to those that are homebound. The future continues to be uncertain. New issues come up almost every day, and we still have new mutations, new variants that we have to deal with. But your actions really do make a difference. You have made Sunnyvale a better place in the last year. You got your vaccinations, you wear your masks, and so I just want to thank you for that. Thank you for continuing to help rebuild our community wherever you can. Sunnyvale will emerge from this as a stronger community. We are in this together, and we will get through this together. Thanks for listening. Take care and have a great week. See you. Bye.